What's going on, everyone? Vampire Gaming here, and so we're going to kick today's market watch off. We're just going to look at all of OP05 just because there's a few things that I'd like to highlight as far as this goes. One being box prices. At $173, there aren't many pools or boxes that you could possibly have that would yield you this value, and I think it's a big problem. Obviously, there's a little bit more stock coming, I believe, later this week. But it's like their wave 2 and it isn't huge. But you can see here, the outside of the mangas, the most expensive card is Akainu at $127, and then SP Nami at 114, Luffy at 106. This Yamato actually was relatively cheap and made its way back up here to 80. I believe it was sitting at like 50, which felt really undervalued. Let's just see if we can see. Yeah, it was selling at around 50s, which felt pretty affordable, especially for like an alternate art Yamato. So making its way back there just only made sense. And then you've got Eustace. Also on this, purple hasn't been relevant in OP06. So I would just like to highlight that. If you're gonna play max rarity purple, do it because you want to. I would not recommend picking up max rarity purple at all, just because it is only as of right now, it's only valid for this format. And as we've seen, yellow's getting a ton of busted cards. There is a purple, blue Magellan leaders. So there's possible more to come on the purple side, but I just be very careful with picking up things like this. Same with Zoro Joro. I think this has collectability being Zoro. But overall, yeah. And you can kind of see just here, these other SPs are $32. So like you would essentially have to hit 2 of these in a box for you to get your value. And to go like plus. Like there are the super rares, which we'll look at here. Like Rebecca is $10. Eustace being the most expensive at 13. He was $6 on release. So it really on this too gives the big Sabo energy. Sabo was $4 and then quickly jumped to around 8. So pretty much doubled. And then same here with Eustace. Historically, it's been pretty much you don't want to buy like on release because prices will go down. But in One Piece so far, they've shown us that prices will shoot up. But yeah, you've got like all these other alts here too. Overall, very affordable. The Luffy secret rare really broke my heart because it started at around 13. It went up to 22, 23, sitting at around 22 right now. This card is decent. It's a tech in purple Luffy, and some people play it in red purple Luffy. But yeah, I ended up pulling 2, and I just picked up a third one, and I'm just probably not gonna play 4. And you got Lucci relatively affordable. Kaido, being one of those lower cost secrets. So that's nice. Borsellino, you typically play 2, sitting around $2, and you've got this Don. I think this Don's underrated. I think it's a great value at like $2. I wish there was more. When you look at it, there's actually like not many sellers with more than 2, but at 2, I like it. I think it's really cool. I think it was one of the best parts of Skypiea. But yeah, let's go ahead. And so with the release of a new set, one of the things you will see is you'll see the money flow out of the old sets into the new. You kind of see that here with Newgate having been $70 and slowly making his way back down, and now the SP $60, which feels kind of low, but there are 2 alts, and I think this is definitely the least desired one. But I anticipated him to be a little bit more. But again, like when a new set comes out, all the old money, like people who have these, like I also traded on my high rarity stuff. I got rid of 2 Magellans and some stuff to pick up some things. And then you've got this Newgate sitting around 72 when he was chilling around like wanting to be 90, 80. Same with Borsellino's too. Borsellino's gone down a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and talk about this Luffy. This probably not a legitimate one, but about $100. I'd mentioned this in previous videos. I just would not pick it up because there's the Oda one. But it seems that this one's still holding relatively strong. So I was slightly incorrect on this. I imagine a part of that is due to the fact that there's guaranteed 2 Oda Luffy's per case. This is the not signature one, just the regular one. But this is sitting still about $100. A very nice card. So it might be time to pick this up if you're wanting it for the collection. It is OP03, so very well could be printed again. But yeah, I figured if anything was going to bring it down, it was going to be all these Rush Luffy reprints, and there's now 2 other rarity options, one being the Treasure Cruise winner from Locals, and then the Oda one, and this one's still holding strong, so it might be time to pick that up if you're looking for it for collection. And then another card, yellow, of course, if you've seen the Three Brothers starter decks, I'll have a video coming on those, so if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications, because there's a ton of busted yellow support in that. And then we also got 1 card teased from the extra booster one, and a card's also broken. But yellow mom Lin sitting here strong at $60. A couple of smaller sales, but overall there were some sales here in the 60s. So this kind of shocked me when I saw it. I was glad I picked one up at around 24. This could definitely go back down. But with the yellow getting a regular life manipulation cards, there isn't a big need for Katakuri, so we'll see what happens. And then I mentioned these purple alts. I have 4 polys. I'm probably also going to get rid of these. It possibly goes up if purple dominates the format, but again, OP06 so far isn't showing to have anything for purple in terms of showings. So again, if you pick this up, it's very well a card that goes down in OP06. Be sure to pick this up because you want to. And as always, don't overextend trying to pick up cards. You don't have to play max rarity. I very much enjoy playing regular rarity stuff. And that's probably what I'm going to do on Poly. And then regular Poly, $5. He was kind of going down a little bit at 3. I just moved a bunch of mine to my locals. But he's sitting at about 5. I don't know if he goes much higher. Again, after this set too, he just falls off, so it could be the end of him. But on that, one of the things that I've noticed, there aren't a ton of cards. Previously, we'd see a lot of older cards show up, but in OP06 in the format, I'm not seeing a crazy amount of the cards we've seen before show up, which is super interesting, but it just goes to show how powerful the new cards are, and it makes me question whether or not staples are going to actually truly be a thing. But it feels like there are some consistencies that we will likely see across the board. We'll talk about that in a sec, but also you've got Cracker, really good in Bello Betty, because you get double attack, and you can go 10k double attack by discarding 1 card and for 1 Dawn, which can crack them for 2 and really just be detrimental. So this card is honestly one of the MVPs of the deck, in my opinion, because it also has counter. So I think that's definitely why I've seen hype on here. But Bello Betty, we'll see how Bello Betty shapes up in competitive. I know people here love Zoro. Bello Betty's essentially a crazier Zoro, so we'll see. But definitely something to keep your eyes on. If you had these in your binders, might be worth cashing in. But on the topic of like staples, I think the biggest thing that's going to be consistent, and like we see, is like Otama's a $6 card. Kaya is a blue 2K. So this makes it almost a blue staple. There are other blue 2Ks, but it's one of the better blue 2Ks. So it might be worth having these just for the long term, especially like just in the game, because as these sets, because you have these demand struggles that we're seeing right now, and as the game continues to grow, might be worth picking these up. As you can see, they're pretty much almost like $1 at this point. And on just some like the Reiju list, this was like the only card from previous sets that I was really seeing. And then you also have to remember, like, I don't think Reiju's playing blocker kit either, so just gotta be careful on those purple cards. But yeah, I think in terms of like these, like the most consistent cards we are going to see are 2Ks. It might just be worth making sure you have all your 2Ks. And then of course Nami, we're talking about a couple OP01 cards here. I talk about money moving into other places, but Nami is no exception here. Nami just continually, we saw that one dip when it was announced. Nami's now back at 4, sitting $300 strong. I'll probably never own this card at this point unless my locals randomly has one and I trade them for it. But just something to keep your eyes on. If you need one of these, it's probably, there's never going to be a good time to pick it up, I don't think, unless they ban it again, which all the other cards are buzzed and this card becomes very irrelevant, so I don't see that happening. So just something to keep an eye on if you're looking for that for the collection. But then, of course, on the extra booster one side, we've had some announcements, one being a red-green Odin. So let's talk about Yamato. Yamato, of course, on the decline a little bit here. Had like a moment in that weird format that we created because of the ban list. But this card could very well be playable in the new Odin deck. Double attack banish is still very strong. We don't know any of the support, but it's obvious we're going to get like Land of Wano type support. Whether it'll be green or red has yet to be determined, but stay tuned for that. However, this being an OP01 card, the pop-up shop just happened. A ton of OP01 just hit the market again. Might be worth picking this up, especially because there was the new alt now as well. So there's technically a reprint. So a couple more copies of this card just existing in general, and people possibly selling this to buy the higher rarity, which happens. So might be a good opportunity. Just pick up, probably not a play set, but maybe like one or two just to have, because I don't see much downside at this point after it's already gone down quite a bit, unless they reprint this. And if they reprint, it's the best thing that they could do, right? In my opinion, if they reprint the set, obviously, like, into oblivion, like, obviously prices go down, but that's the best case for just all players. And so that happens. But it might be worth taking them out of your binders at the very least if you have them. And then, of course, Ulti, I think this is just pure tax. Pure tax. I don't think this card's shown up much, but it's continually gone up. $28. It is one of the cards that you can verify pre-errata and errata, so that might have something to do with it. But this essentially, like, it isn't alt, but this being like the same price as Yamato when this card was this, I think, I don't know. I think it's just all tax. I don't know how I feel about this. I just really wanted to highlight this because it's $27. Might be worth something if you have it to cash in on. Might also be just worth, if you had it in your binder at one point, just pulling it out and just, setting that aside, because who knows what'll happen. But it is, of course, been on the up and up, because you do get the Blurple Kaido, and that very well could be where this is coming from, because you do get the Ulti Searcher. But we also got Shanks. Shanks back down. Shanks went up a ton. Because of Red Purple Luffy. Now, we've got Ninebeard, which is arguably way better than a Shanks. No offense, buddy. I think that this card is a great opportunity to add one to the collection. There's not a ton listed here at this, like, $19. But going from 33 down to 20, picking one of these up at 20 just to have, I think is a solid cop. Because, again, OP01, we have yet to see what their plans are. I know the pop-up shop didn't have booster boxes. They were only blisters, so they might not actually be printing any more booster boxes, but they might continue to print blisters. So we'll see what happens, but definitely something to keep your eyes on if you're wanting Shanks, or if you think you might run Shanks in your Red Purple Luffy this format, something to consider picking up. Then, of course, Kinemon. Again, there was the Red-Green Odin that was announced. I think this was a silly buy. I think the super rare is better. I think $3 is fair. I think what they did with the alt is silly, because he only restands, or he plays the 3 cost, but then he restands the 3 when he attacks, and it's got to have the a Kazaya 9 type character with a cost of 3 or less. And so really intrigued to see if there's anything worth that. And he's a 6 for 6, which is kind of expensive. So I feel like out of all the cards, and we'll talk about some others, I think that this was the worst card. But I think the super rare makes a little bit more sense to go up in value, but I think this is silly. $25 for this Kinemon. He is OP01. He's got OP01 going for him. I know it was so funny when Poly became worth money. Everybody's like, we should pick up Kinemon, because you never know what alt might become worth money, because this was essentially considered the most useless one outside of, like, Rush Queen. So, yeah. I don't agree with this. I wouldn't pick these up. If I had these, I'd be looking to move it. We saw this with Odin before, and I'll talk about Odin again in a moment. But we saw this before. He went up to like 30, then he went right back down. I think one of the cards that if you don't have, you definitely want to get is Denjiro. Essentially, for 1 Dan, you get 2 Dan back. And so that's huge value. And he's a 5/7, so he's a great going first curve. And he's going to have 1K counter with the Odin leader. So I think that this, and obviously other people have picked up on this as well since the announcement. Tons of sales. I just picked up 3 from my locals. Shout out them. And then also, of course, this card might be the GOAT there that you would want, being the Searcher and possibly the Searcher for that Odin deck. He, of course, making his way up there. It's probably about to be $2. So definitely want to pick these up if you don't have them. If you, because you never know. I mean, this very well could be like a $3, $4, depending on what comes out and if that Odin is good. And so far, just base, he looks good. Another thing to highlight, obviously, you know, Radical Beam went up to around $5, sitting back at $2.80, almost $3. So it just goes to show you, one, like with the unbans, there's a ton of hype, a ton of fear of missing out. Always wait. If a card goes up, if you don't need it in that instant, definitely wait for it to cool down. And then Okiku, another just Odin support. I think this card, obviously, it's a 1K. You go 3, you go Denjiro, you got this, you got that. And then on 7, if you want, I guess, you can play Odin. Or not Odin, Kinemon. So that's cool. But yeah, I think it's the time to pick this up. This, of course, had the reprint in the pack. So, but this is, of course, Romance Dawn. But, of course, having that reprint does help keep the price a little bit lower, which is always nice. But it's definitely worth just having a playset here. Same here with this Yamato. It has a Judge Pack reprint. But, yeah, this, again, it's going to be a 1K. 4/6 gives you that odd curve. And then you've got Odin at 8. Huge potential here. And then also just resting a 6 cost. Rest blockers. Will pretty much rest any blocker. So, great game finisher. Overall, just great body to have. So definitely, if you don't have these, look into that. Another, again, just money's moved out. Kuzan settling back down at 18. I know I released a Sabo list. If you haven't checked that out, definitely consider it. If you think you might want to play Sabo, I was playing 4 Kuzans. I just picked up my Kuzans for my locals because he was sitting around 18. I think he peaked around 25-ish. Yeah, he peaked around 25. He's on his way back down, settling around 18. I think that's much more fair. Borsellino's still at about 28, but I think it's a great time to pick up the Kuzans. Also, this card here, I'm a big fan of this card. I picked up one for my locals. I highlighted this. It was like 90 in pre-sale F in the chat for anyone who bought that. Most people don't, but you never really know. And then just quickly declined. 2 per case, guaranteed. It's a beautiful card. It's a great alt art, especially considering that the structure deck one is around $9 for 20. If you buy it locally, you might be able to pick it up for like 15, 16. That I think this card's gorgeous and totally worth playing. I think this could potentially be undervalued. I think the Japanese ones, they were 1 per case. Their cases are different, but this card's beautiful. Looks good. Art by Oda, specifically drawn for this card game. I'm definitely gonna have at least a play set, so definitely be on the lookout for those. I think at 20, it's a great price. And Kozuki Odin. I think, again, like, he's the same price as Kinemon. I just want to take a moment to talk about him. But I think Kozuki Odin is a better buy than Kinemon. I think a lot of people really overlook this. One, he's a 1K counter. So this card was insane, but it sucked when you had a bunch of these in your hand. Well, now they're 1Ks. And then this card has one of the craziest effects ever. If you get rid of them, you get a new card. You get no Kiku, or even possibly one of the new characters that will presumably come out if they bring one out that can fit within this constraint. But then also he sets himself as active and he gives you a kid leader. Plus he works with the Odin effect. I believe you have to have a 5 cost or higher, and then he gets he's a 6K during your opponent's turn. Or it's like he's a 6K until like the end of your next turn. Something like that. And so this works well with the leader ability. So I'm a big fan of this card. I like it way more than Kinemon. But as always, thank you all so much for watching. If you found this content of value, if you could do me a favor, almost 80% of my viewers are not subscribed. If you subscribe to the channel, it means the world to me. And thank you so much.